So it's my honor to introduce our keynote speaker this evening. Adrienne Adams was elected Speaker of the New York City Council this past January after having represented the 28th District of Jamaica, Richmond Hill, Rochdale Village, and South Ozone Park since November 2017. She's the first woman elected to represent her district and the first African-American Speaker of the City Council, leading the most diverse and the first woman majority council in New York City history. She has been an outspoken supporter of the Jewish community, standing up and speaking out against all form of anti-Semitism and hate. We are so delighted that you're here with us to join our board, our annual meeting. You have a room, you have people on by Zoom, by live stream. So thank you very much for being with us, and thank you for everything you have done, will do, and we look forward to continued partnership. Thank you, Speaker.
What a beautiful room. Good evening, everyone. Oh my goodness, it is a pleasure and an honor to be with you this evening. And thank you very much for welcoming me, particularly with open arms, to the JCRC annual board meeting. It's an honor, truly, to be here with all of you this evening, live and in person and in Zoom land as well. As was said, I am New York City Council Speaker Adrienne Adams, and I do have the distinct honor of leading the most diverse and first women majority city council in our city's history. Our council members represent all of the communities that make up our beautifully diverse city, including the member organizations here today that serve neighborhoods across the 5 boroughs and beyond. Before I begin, I just want to acknowledge and thank the leadership of JCRC for all that you do to support Jewish communities throughout the metropolitan New York City area, which is home to the largest Jewish population outside of Israel. I applaud you for standing together. I recognize Dr. Cheryl Fishbein, our JCRC president. Cheryl will soon take on the role of board chair in just a few days. We congratulate and commend you for your great work. I also want to recognize JCRC CEO Gideon Taylor and Chief Operating Officer Noam Gilbord. We're also joined by Ambassador Asaf Samir, Consul General of Israel. Thank you all for your incredible work, including putting on the annual Celebrate Israel parade down Fifth Avenue and advocating for Israel through education and mission trips. Our city and our country have been forever changed by the lasting impacts of COVID-19. We've lost more than 40,600 New Yorkers to this virus, and I can personally attest it is a devastating feeling to lose a loved one, as I lost my dad in May of 2020. Our businesses and industries have been decimated. Our students are still catching up to time lost due to the digital divide and isolation from their friends and their peers. All of us, regardless of age and background, have felt the toll of this pandemic on our mental health and our well-being. Another troubling trend over these last few years, and we feel it, and that is an uptick in violence and hate in cities across this country, including our very own New York City. Communities that have been deprived of their usual supports and resources have experienced rising gun violence, traffic violence, and hate violence. This is something our Jewish communities unfortunately know all too well. While hate crimes against Asian, Sikh, Muslim, and LGBTQ+ New Yorkers have surged, anti-Semitic violence remains the most prevalent form of hate in our city. It is reprehensible, vile, and must come to an end because an attack on our Jewish community is an attack on all of us. We cannot and must not allow this to continue. As a council, we fully understand the pain and trauma that this kind of hate causes in our communities. We feel it deeply and viscerally and must always stand together to unequivocally condemn it in all of its forms. But as a city, we are not just standing by and letting this hate fester and grow. We're identifying the root causes and taking steps to prevent it from spreading. 2 months ago, on Holocaust Remembrance Day, the Council's Jewish Caucus, Black, Latino, and Asian Caucus, and other members joined the Simon Wiesenthal Center at City Hall to unveil their annual digital terrorism report. First copy. This copy was given to me at City Hall before anyone else got it, and I was honored to receive it. What we learned from this report is that hate speech and violence are not just happening physically, but also online through digital platforms that reach our babies, our children, our most vulnerable. It's disseminating through social media and gaming platforms that allow misinformation and dangerous, hateful ideas to influence others. The Digital Terrorism Report shamed these social media platforms by grading them based on how poorly they have rooted out messages of hate. From this report, we know that these companies have a responsibility to prevent the cultivation of hate that can manifest into violence. But we also have a responsibility to bring our communities together to confront hate with unity, understanding, and respect. We must invest in programs and initiatives that promote these values. In the New York City budget that was adopted ahead of schedule just last week, the Council secured $5 million for community-based hate crimes prevention and response programs. This funding includes the Cure Hate Initiative to support swift responses to communities and victims of hate crimes and focuses on healing communities affected by hate. We've also allocated funding for the Hate Crime Prevention Initiative to support community organizations working in advanced and diverse neighborhoods to prevent hate violence and respond to them accordingly. These are just some of the many investments that the Council has prioritized to make our communities safer and New York City stronger in our recovery. In the city budget, we have expanded youth programs, improved access to housing affordability, increased supported services, and deepened investments for parks and sanitation. We addressed food insecurity, improved access to physical and mental health care, and supported working middle-class homeowners through a property tax rebate that my colleague, the Honorable Councilmember Gail Brewer, was champion at the table in budget negotiations to help secure $90 million. This year, we also created a new speakers initiative, the Community Safety and Victim Services Initiative, to support essential services that strengthen our communities. Each council member, per my directive, will designate $100,000 for programs in their respective districts that provide youth services, economic opportunity, housing stability, or recreational programs. The funding can also support services for victims of crime, which are critical to helping them heal and recover from the trauma of violence. These are the kinds of investments that are effective in keeping our communities safe from hate and violence. This council recognized that New Yorkers are still struggling and seeking to recover from the pandemic. We know that everyone deserves to live in safe, clean, and healthy communities that provide an abundance of resources and ample opportunities to thrive. This budget is but a down payment on that vision we collectively share and are working towards achieving. But we certainly cannot do it without the help and leadership of JCRC and all of the member organizations who are here in this room this evening. It is only with your diligent partnership us walking hand in hand and arm, that we will support and that we indeed will build a city that we know is within our grasp collectively as partners and neighbors. We will build a community that's equitable, strong, and free from violence and hate. I believe that, and I know that you do too. I look forward to continuing this amazing partnership with you and working together to support all New Yorkers. Thank you so much for giving me a little bit of your time tonight.
So let me, if I might, I just want to also introduce you to the incoming president of JCRC, Ben Golub, who will be starting on July 1st.
Congratulations.
And we look forward to working together with you, for me, Ben, Cheryl, together on many of these initiatives. So there were two questions, if I might just sort of ask you, some of it you addressed a little bit. For us at JCRC, we look at the issue of combating hate through two lenses. So on one lens is related to security, and our Community Security Initiative, which is a partnership between JCRC and UJA Federation, works very closely with law enforcement and encouraging places of worship, Jewish institutions, and other groups as well regarding security. And an equally important part for us is the work of education. And we have many partnerships with organizations connected through the City Council, through grants, through the PATH funding, and other programs. And we believe that education, working with other communities, building coalitions, is a critical part of our work. So for JCRC, I think it's very unique that we look at this in a very holistic kind of way. And what I think we sort of wanted to hear your thoughts on, how do you see what partnerships we might have going forward, and how can we work further and closer with City Council on these issues? And we look forward to that, whatever partnership the Council, members of the Council, be appropriate for us as an organization committed to combating hate against, not only against the Jewish community, but against the wider community.
So much for the question. Very, very important. I think that it is vital that we maintain and continue to build our relationships. You know, this council is brand spanking new for the most part, and all of you feel, except for Gail, and except for Ari. Hi, Ari. But for the most part, we now have brand new members that have never been in this position before. So what becomes the challenge is to hone and foster those relationships. The relationships that were existing before the new members came in, some of those relationships that have been built before them, now have to be built up and understood, I think, by the newer members. So it is going to be incumbent upon organizations like JCRC to bring that knowledge to those new members, continue to build and foster those relationships. I'm loving Zoom. I don't know if you all are loving Zoom, but what Zoom did for us during this pandemic is it actually brought us together in the strangest way, because I was a little Zoom resistant, I have to be honest with you. I was a little Zoom resistant in the beginning and saying, you know, we've got to be able to reach out and touch, to see each other, to feel each other. But then Zoom became that intimate space and those beautiful Brady Bunch boxes. And then we were able to really, it was an intimate space that we never, ever expected it to be. So I'm encouraging all of our partners also to continue to use that medium, that amazing virtual medium, but also integrate as well, you know, these great spaces where we can indeed look into each other's faces, and we can see our faces again without the mask. So I'm encouraging to just continue to build on those relationships, particularly with the newer members of the council.
So one last question, and I know your time is limited, and we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. The issue obviously on the minds of all New Yorkers, including JCRC, and for us at JCRC, we've always positioned ourselves on whatever the issues of the day are. We feel there's a role and a voice for the Jewish community, and we, on behalf of the Jewish community, want to be there to try to create a better and stronger New York. And the scourge of gun violence is one that is obviously weighing on our minds, on all our minds as New Yorkers. And would just appreciate your thoughts on how, again, what role you see for the City Council, how you see the issue developing, obviously very much on the national agenda, and the impact on New York. For us at JCRC, this is an issue of deep, deep, deep issues as New Yorkers.
Thank you again. Great question. And indeed, it is really one of the most prevalent questions of the day, really the most tragic that we're dealing with, not just New York, but across this country. And we literally see things exploding before our very eyes. And we've watched things unravel when it comes to guns, gun violence, mindsets, and I rely on the mentality, you know, of those who legally possess guns and those, of course, who illegally possess firearms. What we really need to take a look at more closely, as far as I'm concerned, and I'll just mention this to this group, is the pipeline and that horrible, traffic that goes from south to north. That impacts all of us, because it really is the illegal sale, in my estimation, of these guns coming through this iron pipeline up here to New York. For the most part, the folks that are shooting and, basically just going off the rails in New York City are getting these guns illegally, coming from places that are not New York. We have some of the strongest, and it's repetitive, but it's true, and I think it's important to continue to say this. We have some of the strongest gun legislation in the entire country, and yet we have watched this condition spiral out of control in our city, largely due to the pandemic, once again, which has brought us so much tragedy in a lot of other ways now. What I will say, as far as partnering, working around this, participate in our oversight hearings when it comes to public safety. Avail yourselves to those hearings, not just for us in the council, but also in those state hearings as well. Let your voices be heard, because legislation begins in the living room. So when I talk to my neighbors and I get ideas, and I know, Gail, the same thing, our ideas come from the community. They come from kitchens, they come from living rooms, they come from backyard barbecues and other places that extend not just with our friends, but with our families as well. When we really, really talk about these issues, I come from a family I grew up in a union family, and every Sunday we went to my grandmother's house in East Elmhurst. And what my sister and I learned later on in life was that those kitchen conversations that were happening very boisterously, I must let you all know, my family was very loud. So what my sister and I would hear, whether we were outside or in the next room, what we would hear in that kitchen conversation stuck with us as teenagers and remained with us as grown-ups, and remembering how valuable it was, because our family always talked politics. We didn't quite know, what all of that meant, what all of that glue was, but we recognized names. We recognized the Nixon era and what went on. We recognized other names that just came to mind, and we recognized the turnovers of presidencies and things that were happening in our political world. So I know that I say a lot and I talk a lot, and I apologize. But this is the subject matter is just so critical. I'm so glad that you brought it up. We need to start to implement these conversations within our homes, with our families, with our children, and again, very, very importantly, into the political spaces, in hearings for city, state. We look at what happened with the federal government today, and bipartisan legislation. My goodness, what took them so long? I think we do bipartisan very well in the city council right now, by the way, just saying. But they can take a page out of our book, but this is what we all need. We need to get together, just like we are tonight in this room. We need to get together, because together we can solve the world's problems. I believe that.
And I just will close your comment about bipartisanship. What JCRC strives for, and I think you'll see it in this room, on the people joining, in our work, in our parade, in the Israel parade, in all what we do, is to bring the wider Jewish community together, left, right, Orthodox, conservative, Reform, different parts of the Jewish community, and then also to be partners with the great communities that this city has. And in that, we are your partner. We're partner with City Council. We're partner you as Speaker. We wish you all the luck, the success, and we will be there as partners, as supporters on so many of the things, initiatives you're doing to make our city the wonderful city that it is and can be. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.